Thank you, Terry. And thank you all for inviting me to share my observations about the revisit program to Korea and the Korean War. I understand I'm allotted 25 minutes, and so if I'll try to finish before you all hit for the exits. Terry mentioned in the introduction, I'm part of a veterans group. We visit local high schools and share our experiences. I believe that future generations really should understand why we got involved in the Korean Civil War and what was accomplished. As a matter of fact, I think there's a lot of adults who are also a bit hazy about that war. Before I go any further, I really want to let you all know I did not do anything heroic compared to what other American soldiers did and experienced in that war. You know, for many years, South Korea has sponsored revisit programs for Korean veterans to thank them for the freedom and economic success of their country. As a member of a recent group of veterans visiting South Korea, I have to tell you, we were treated with so much respect and courtesy, it was almost embarrassing. Here's a photo of our group. There are 120 veterans in this group, along with their spouses and family members. The entire cost of the week's visit, including hotel, food, tours, etc., is paid by our host, the Republic of South Korea. It was amazing, amazing reception we had. Now, the first part of my presentation will be my impressions of today's Korea. The second will be my observations about the war and a little bit about my personal experience in that war. You all have received handouts on your tables which lists every battle during the war and a map of the Korean Peninsula. I'll refer to the handouts on the map during my presentation, help explain why the war was so important to today's South Koreans. After the armistice was signed, July 1927, 1953, my Jeep driver and I drove into Seoul. All I could see was a city of ashes and smoke. I don't think I saw a building over 3 or 4 stories tall. Here's a photo of Seoul back then. You can tell this illustrates the destruction of Seoul after the city changed hands 4 times. First by the North Koreans, then by the Chinese, and twice by the UN forces. And now the next photo you'll see from my hotel room with my smartphone. I took a photo of the Seoul skyline. You can see the contrast between 1953 and 2013 as we go along here. Next morning, I went to the city center. You can see that a large poster right in the middle of city center thanking the United Nations and Americans for their contribution. Next to our hotel was a construction of a building going to be 123 stories. When it's completed in 2015, it'll be the 2nd tallest building in the world. When the war ended, it would have been just impossible to imagine a vibrant city with skyscrapers and a country with a strong economic base. The estimates back then would take over 100 years to rebuild South Korea back to pre-war levels, standards, but with financial help from the United States and other countries, it only took 60 years. This may come as a surprise to you. But South Korea is 10 years ahead of the United States and most other countries in the world in terms of technology and a well-organized system. For example, the Incheon airport where we landed is the ranked #1 in the world as the most efficient airport in the world. 80% of Incheon, when the war ended, by the time the war ended, was destroyed. 80% was destroyed. And today it's ranked 2nd in terms of growth potential among world cities. Another example is when the war ended, South Korea only had 1 bridge still intact. Today they have 23 bridges with marvelous architecture. You know, we have a problem building 1 bridge between Oregon and Washington. The Korean War is called the Forgotten War because of the sandwich between World War II and the controversies of the Vietnam War. I suggest it could also be known as the bloodiest war in the 20th century. 40,000 Americans died and 104,000 were wounded in the most horrific combat and weather conditions in the history of warfare. South Korea Army fared even worse than others. Than the huge casualties in the South Korean Army. There were somewhere between 3 and 4 million South Korean civilians who died, and 300,000 war widows, 100,000 orphans as a result of that war. On the handout, I'd like to call your attention to page 6. Comments by Eric Severide 60 years ago. I reflected on his observations. I was told that I was needed as a Fort observer. I accepted with a sense of honor and patriotism. Today our forces are again fighting wars in foreign countries, and they have similar sense of honor and patriotism, even knowing that their country is divided about the very purpose of these wars. And finally, let me show. When I go to the high schools, I always like to show a before and after. Here's yours truly, graduating from OCS. Here's the same guy after a tour of duty in Korea. A change of demeanor, as you will note. We prevented North Korea from occupying South Korea. Today, South Korea is free. North Korea's people are starving. God bless America, and thank you very much.